If you say that you're afraid of Trump and that's why you don't want the city to be a safe space for trans people, you better prepare for trans people to make this a very unsafe space.
I'm shaking right now. I don't want to be here. I'm sorry, am I taking too long pleading for my life? Can you look at me and tell me how many of my friends need to die before you do anything?
Please wrap up.
Look at me!
I do not want to be in your DMs. I do not want to be in your email inboxes. I do not want my creativity writing diss tracks like Kendrick. I don't want to spend an hour applying glitter on my face so that you will hear and see me.
I speak as someone who is afraid to use public toilets, and I prefer to be referred to as ma'am.
That was footage from a city council meeting that just took place in a city in Massachusetts. We're going to go through it because there's a lot more footage to look at. They voted yes to become a sanctuary city for transgender and diverse people. I was pretty taken aback by this footage, to be honest with you. And I just want to preface this with saying I don't have a problem. I have never had a problem with gay people or with transgender people. I want to put that out there because I feel that sometimes there seems to be a tendency to equate having any problem with what the LGBTQ community does, like any issue with any aspect of it, and then just equating that to like homophobia or transphobia. I think that there's like more nuance to this than some people try to make out. There's an awful lot to unpack here, so let's just have a look.
I need the city to protect me because the federal government won't. And if you think you're afraid of Trump, you should see how afraid of Trump I am.
Can you wrap up, please?
Yes, I can. If you say that you're afraid of Trump and that's why you don't want the city to be a safe space for trans people, you better prepare for trans people to make this a very unsafe space.
Obviously, that's an alarming thing to say. I think one of the things that people take issue with is the feeling of entitlement. That's the word that comes to my mind. I think that sometimes people think that people are being transphobic when they're actually just being opposed to the kind of entitlement that makes someone feel like they can say, I'm going to make this space unsafe for you if you don't do what I want. Like it's threatening. It reminds me of a child maybe throwing a strop in a supermarket. Like it's not endearing. It's not nice for people who want everybody else to respect their feelings and never offend them. It then becomes kind of hypocritical when they speak in a way that's actually quite rude and disrespectful to other people and to other people's feelings. So yeah, that was alarming to me that somebody could feel that that's an appropriate way to get their point across or an appropriate argument to make for their cause, you know?
I'm shaking right now. I don't want to be here.
Up, please?
I'm sorry, am I taking too long pleading for my life?
So again, it's just like there's so much anger. There's so much emotion there. It's so emotion driven. And obviously like anything that's very emotion driven, then you know that there's probably logic has taken a back seat. I would also say a very kind of like dramatic, exaggerated vibe from this person. Now, I understand that a lot of these people have bought lies that the media has told them, that the Democrats have told them, and I have always said that I will forever be angry with the Democrats for what they've done to people by lying to them, fear-mongering them, and making them truly believe things that have left them feeling terrified and angry, like some of these people. Like, this has not just come out of nowhere. They have been lied to. They believe that Trump is like something that is reason to fear for your life over.
You remembered how many children I have and that 2 of them are trans.
It's that thing of like, okay, so how have you ended up statistically? How have you ended up with 2 trans kids? You know, like it's so statistically uncommon. Like you've basically done the equivalent of winning the lottery. And how is this happening so frequently that parents have multiple children who are transgender, or maybe transgender people have children who are transgender? It's like the likelihood is just so low that it kind of brings cause for concern.
I speak as both the B and the T in the LGBT.
I'm multiply disabled. I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a connective tissue disorder that causes me immense physical pain. I'm on the autism spectrum, and I have narcolepsy, and I couldn't drive myself here, so I had to hide from my driver that I was in drag, which is not an easy thing to do in drag.
I do not want to be here. It's my day off. I do not want to be in your DMs. I do not want to be in your email inboxes. I do not want my creativity writing diss tracks like Kendrick. I don't want to spend an hour applying glitter on my face so that you will hear and see me. I want you to listen to me.
Again, it's very dramatized. It actually reminds me of what was that type of poetry called again? They do it in like poetry clubs. It reminds me of that certain type of like poetry performance. It's almost like a show. It's almost like a drama. The way that this person is talking.
Let us remember that the Nazis burned the books that the Nazis burned books on gender sciences first. Now the administration has villainized and marginalized migrant workers, trans, LGBT people, and even special needs, denying life-saving and affirming care.
What I don't understand is where the villainized thing is coming from, because the way I see it is the MAGA movement has been setting boundaries. Boundaries that a lot of people felt were necessary. And I personally haven't witnessed the part where any of what Trump has been campaigning on is about villainizing trans people. I just see it as boundaries.
Can you look at me and tell me how many of my friends need to die before you do anything?
Please wrap up.
Look at me!
Okay, we're all done here.
Pathetic!
No, we're all done. Come on.
You can see why I was taken aback when I first watched this video. So again, it's just there's so much anger and entitlement, and again, it's like you're asking people to respect your feelings and your emotions whilst also being massively disrespectful of other people's feelings, like but what's being very rude to other people. It reminds me of being like an angsty teenager, and when I would like have a big strop, like I would lash out at my parents, and you know, it really gives me that vibe of like an angsty teen who's like overly emotional, who has like a lot of pent up anger. It doesn't come from a logical place. It doesn't come from a place of like reasoning, which obviously kind of sets off alarm bells.
Of course, we need to continue celebrating Black History Month because in spite of what's coming down from Washington, we all know that we all exist and we all need to be recognized for our existence.
But be aware.
Just to point out that the girl in the background doing this, so a lot of the time in these communities, because of like autism or trying to be respectful of different people, they don't clap because of sound sensitivity. So nobody claps, they'll do this.
That you are a guest in my house when you come. And when you come, know that there are strong queer and trans people in my classroom who will collect you with the quickness.
My name in drag is Dee Dee Delight. And my name out of drag is Dewey Cosgrove Atienza.
Laddie LaRouge, he, they, in drag, District 3.
My legal name is Olivia D'Ambrosio. My public name is Livy Scanlon. My wife and I own a home in the Canal District.
I speak as someone who is always misgendered, like all the time. People refer to me as sir when I prefer to be referred to as ma'am. I speak as someone who is afraid to use public toilets. I speak as someone who is a member of this community and is a queer person.
What bothers me about this is that what that person is suggesting is that it's a bad thing that they can't go into a women's bathroom without feeling uncomfortable. And what I don't understand about the argument is, if that person, he looks like a man, he is a man, right? What I don't understand is if that man walked into a bathroom, a public women's bathroom that I was in on my own, I would feel uncomfortable. And I feel like nowadays with the kind of women empowerment movement, like, you know, women are like girl power and whatever, that we sometimes forget that women are vulnerable, and isolated spaces are one of the places where women are most vulnerable to assault. And it's a fact of life. As much as we want to be like women empowerment, women are strong, like, yes, women are strong, but women are also vulnerable. And I would be frightened in a women's bathroom if that man walked in and started to engage with me. If I was on my own, I would genuinely be frightened. And it's not a situation I ever want to end up in, because I know what the world is like. I know what it's like to be in isolated situations. Why do my feelings not matter? Why do his feelings trump mine? That's what doesn't make sense. Because you're arguing that your feelings need to be respected, that everybody needs to respect them. What about all the women who feel uncomfortable in that situation? Do those feelings not matter? Why aren't you standing up on a podium arguing about those people's feelings as well? That's just the part that I've never, ever understood.
You have to imagine being me and my wife, fearing that our marriage rights will be stripped away at any moment.
Please, I only have so much time. Please, Joe's gonna cut me off.
Which matters more? Covering the legal fees of systemic police brutality or protecting the lives of queer people in our community? How many lives have to be lost before you consider fighting back against fascism and corruption?
Now is the time to say that if federal money relies on the dehumanization of trans people, that we don't want your goddamn money.
I get that some of you care more about easy funding than trans lives and don't mind Nazis for some whatever reason, but
normally I would say good evening, but through the chair I will only impart my sour grapes.
It's an extremely emotional and taxing thing to stand up here as someone as part of the trans and gender diverse community.
My name is Katie. I'm from District 5, and I'm speaking in support of agenda items 10B and 14B. Right now in our country, Trump is threatening the trans and gender diverse community.
Noticing people here are trying to control the rights of others, and that's not right. We should make Worcester a sanctuary city for trans people. Everybody deserves to feel safe.
I think the thing of getting a child to read out a speech is a little bit emotionally manipulative, I have to say. It's a very, very young child, and I just, too young to be involved in this discussion, you know. It definitely, again, it just raises red flags for me, I think.
Needs to feel safe. I've lived here for 4 years, and there hasn't really been any changes in how people feel safe in the city. My birthday is this Saturday, and all I want is peace and for you to vote yes. Please don't let me down for my birthday. There's a lot of queer people that I love, and to Candy Carlson, you should know to never call someone I'm 7 and I know better.
Fair enough. I think is super disrespectful. I get that it's confusing because if somebody is like declaring that they're not he or she and it gets confusing, you don't know what to call them, I would just say they. Like, I just feel like referring to a human being as it is still pretty rude.
The kids are watching and we're ready to vote you out.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm still shocked that a council meeting in a city could be like this. I don't know what to say about it. It's a strange thing to try to comprehend that this is actually happening in a city. What it does remind me of is when I was a teenager and there was the emo trend going on at the time. It was very, very common for teenagers to be dressing like emo goth, and it was very standout like this. You know, everybody looked very kind of eye-catching, where they'd have like a lot of dark makeup on and their hair all spiky or colourful and chains and flashy outfits. And, you know, I participated in myself, you know, and then there would be like certain places where emo kids would hang out, like shops, outside shops or whatever. And if you walked past, like, it would just be this whole group of very kind of eye-catching kids. And at the time, I think that teenagers like that were trying to express that they were feeling depressed or unhappy, or they were struggling. They were trying to express themselves, something that they were struggling with. Maybe they were very angsty. It was teenagers like not knowing how to handle struggles that they were going through, or a lot of them feelings, emotions that they were experiencing, and so they would express it in that way. Or maybe they were looking for attention, some of them. But I do see a lot of correlations with this. Like, it just reminds me of this, and in that way I think that this is a trend amongst young people. I mean, most of the people in this video are quite young, but the difference between the kind of emo movement and then this movement that's happening nowadays amongst young people, who are clearly struggling mentally within themselves, and they're uncomfortable within themselves. The difference I see is that there's a lot more, firstly, entitlement, a lot more kind of anger directed outwards towards people, and a feeling that people should be bowing down to their wishes. And also, I think there's a lot more possibility for permanent change that we didn't have with the emo movement when I was a teenager. Like, when you were a teenager, you dressed like an emo, and then a few years later, you're not dressing like an emo anymore, and you've grown up and whatever. But with this, it's like they're taking hormones, they're taking drugs, they're getting surgeries, and that kind of thing. In a decade or two, I would bet money that in a decade or two, there's going to be a lot of people really, really regretting the decisions they made when they were young, and that they were encouraged to make when they were young. And the people who will have benefited off that will be pharmaceutical companies, people, whoever's profiting off of this will be the people who benefit in the long term. And I just want to say that I'm glad that my parents didn't bow down to every single one of my wishes when I was an angsty young person. Being told no, being uncomfortable, being offended, etc., helped me to grow into a better person, into a more mature person, a more well-rounded person. And I think we've forgotten nowadays that actually discomfort is not something that we want to avoid all the time. It's what helps us to grow so that we can go out and contribute more to the world around us. Anyway, I just wanted to show you guys that video and go through it with you, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. I was genuinely taken aback by it, so I'm just curious what you guys think. And how do you think this is all going to go from here on out with this new administration coming in, shaking things up? I'm looking forward to hearing your guys' thoughts. As I always say, your opinion matters. Please do share, and I'll see you guys next time.